Spider-Woman is an animated television series produced by Patty Freeling Enterprises and Marvel Comics Animation that ran on the ABC network from 1979 to 1980. The animated series follows the adventures of Jessica Drew, the editor of Justice magazine. Drew, along with her nephew Billy, and her ace photographer Jeff Hunt, do a whole bunch of globetrotting in their Justice jetcopter for the next hot story. While transatlantic helicopter flights are possible, they usually tend to involve in-flight refueling and aren't quite as practical as they make it seem on this cartoon. Then, when Billy or Jeff inevitably find themselves in danger, Jessica will perform her spider change to become the crime-fighting heroine, Spider-Woman.
Spider-Woman!
You were expecting maybe the Hulk?
Marvel Comics interim editor-in-chief, Archie Goodwin, created Spider-Woman as a means to stave off any impending female Spider-Man ripoffs. Spider-Woman first appears in the pages of Marvel Spotlight, issue number 32, by the year 1976. The original origin story from Marvel Spotlight, issue number 32, sees the character as a Hydra assassin, with the codename Arachne, who was advanced from a spider to a human form by way of the High Evolutionary's genetic accelerator. Even though this didn't prevent posers, such as Filmation's Web Woman, from coming onto the scene, a costume and look was quickly designed by Marie Severin and put into place. After a 5-issue arc inside the pages of Marvel 2-in-1, the character was heavily promoted and thrust into her own ongoing series by the year 1978 from Marv Wolfman and Carmine Infantino.
And this is Jessica Drew, who as a child, while visiting her father's laboratory, was bitten by a poisonous spider. Forced to try an untested spider serum, Dr. Drew not only saved his daughter's life, but unknowingly gave her incredible spider-like powers. Dedicated to fighting evil while weaving her web of justice, it's Spider-Woman.
The introduction that provides Spider-Woman's cartoon origin to new viewers every week sets her up as having super abilities granted by a life-saving spider serum concocted by her father. Then, Drew goes on to be the editor of her own magazine, much like Britt Reed with his Daily Sentinel newspaper. Meanwhile, Jessica Drew is actually moonlighting as the superheroine, Spider-Woman, just as Reed is secretly the masked crime fighter, the Green Hornet.
Look at me, Daddy. I could crawl like a spider.
Alternatively, by the first issue of Spider-Woman's ongoing series, she was freed of the hypnotic control and memory implants of Hydra, and her origins as a spider evolved to a human form were now changed. Some retroactive continuity was introduced by writer Marv Wolfman that revealed a friendship between Herbert Edgar Wyndham, the man who would become the High Evolutionary, and his fellow scientist Jonathan Drew, who specialized in the study of arachnids. Once the two friends discover a cache of uranium in the nation Transia that makes them wealthy men, they construct the citadel known as Wundagore. Having brought his wife Miriam and young daughter Jessie to the Citadel, unfortunately the radiation from the cache of uranium causes Jessie to become deathly ill. Like the cartoon, Jonathan injects a spider extract into his daughter to save her life. However, Wyndham also agrees to help by speeding up the process with his genetic accelerator, making Drew half human and half spider. With her parents now both deceased and Jessica a teenage girl, she finds the High Evolutionary's treatment has given her multiple abilities. The ability to cling to walls like a spider, the ability to generate bioelectric energy that she could discharge once every hour as sparks, or as they would come to be called, venom blasts, the proportionate strength of a spider, as well as glider webs on her costume that allow her to simulate flight by riding air currents. In addition, Spider-Woman has an immunity to radiation and toxic substances, and skin that exudes a high concentration of pheromones that elicit hostility in women or stimulate pleasure in men.
It's no use. I can't stop that dragon tank. But I've got a should take care of everything.
In comparison, Spider-Woman's powers and abilities on the TV series are that she has any power the writers felt were needed, but they just stuck the word spider in front of the superpower. Besides the aforementioned spider change, that was most likely inspired by Wonder Woman's transformation sequences, Spider-Woman can shoot enemies with limitless venom blasts from her hands, or sword fight with a venom blast saber, creates spider webbing and spider lines from pointing her index finger, has high-frequency, spider-sensitive hearing, ultra-high-frequency spider shrieking, lightning-quick spider speed, commands her fellow arachnids with spider telepathy, so-called shallow spider breath that protects her from strange gases, spider bubbles that protect her from drowning, spidery web spirals that somehow trap foes in cache enclosures, high-speed spider spirals, spider slingshots, super sensitive spider eyes, and oh yeah, she can fly. It was like in every episode, the writers would pull yet another spider power out of her ass. You don't get new abilities just by sticking spider in front of the word.
My spider coordination makes playing this basketball game a cinch.
Spider-Woman's spider sense is a lot more like Nicholas Hammond's TV Spider-Man, where she sorta predicts the future or visually sees danger rather than just getting a sense about it. She even sometimes refers to the ability as spider visions.
That looks exactly like the spot I saw in my spider vision.
More like a DC Comics character, Jessica Drew certainly has a much more cozy relationship with the local police department than her male counterpart, so much so that she can call up Chief Cooper on a view-screen television.
Sounds like my old friend could use some help.
Speaking of Spider-Man, he makes multiple guest appearances on this series in the episodes titled Pyramids of Terror and the Congo Spider. Regardless of any official canonicity, Spidey Super Stories, issue number 32 from late 1977, features the first team-up between Spider-Man and Spider-Woman against longtime Spidey foe, Dr. Octopus. However, Spider-Man and Spider-Woman first officially meet in the 616 universe within her own comic book about a month or so before their cartoon team-up inside the pages of Spider-Woman issue number 20. Spider-Man later guest appears in Spider-Woman issues 28 and 29. By the year 1980, Paul Soles would reprise his role as the amazing web-slinger from the 60s cartoon, but he sounds a bit like William Shatner in this series to me.
Don't you know you're not allowed to fly without a pilot's license?
There's a man out there.
Spider-Man's look is slightly altered to match that of Spider-Woman's, making his normally white-colored eye lenses yellow. I always thought that synchronicity was a little bit weird as a kid, but would later use it to defend costume decisions made in 2012's The Amazing Spider-Man. Ultimately, Spider-Man doesn't seem to be very bright in Pyramids of Terror, mainly so Spider-Woman can come up with a way to save the day from the space mummy Khufu and his alien invasion of flying pyramids. In their next encounter, Spider-Man is left in the friend zone after teaming up with Spider-Woman to stop a mecha spider in Paris.
Speaking of happy endings, how about having lunch with me at a little French cafe?
Sorry, maybe next time. I've got to be going.
The two heroes would go on to co-star in The Amazing Spider-Man and Spider-Woman together against the Kingpin book and record set by January of 1980. While Spider-Woman issue number 20 saw Spider-Man confronting Spider-Woman after a misunderstanding involving her returning some stolen money, this activity book/record set sees Spider-Woman going after Spider-Man thinking he is a wanted criminal. While the Kingpin intends for our two heroes to destroy one another, they quickly suss out his deception and work together to end his crime spree. Wilson Fisk, Kingpin of Crime, actually makes his second animated appearance on the Spider-Woman television series in the episode titled The Kingpin Strikes Again. Apparently, Kingpin's superpower is to randomly have a grocery in his pants as he begins the episode munching on some raw broccoli. Later, he moves on to apples and carrot sticks, and his voice is pretty weird sounding.
I'll put you behind bars if it's the last thing I do, Kingpin.
I'm afraid not, Spider Lady. No one's ever going to catch me because I'm the greatest criminal mind of all times.
Lex Luthor, the greatest criminal mind of our time.
While fending off Lex Luthor's catchphrase lawyers, the Kingpin steals an experimental invisibility ray and manages to deduce that Jessica Drew and Spider-Woman are one and the same person.
I never would have believed it. Jessica Drew is Spider-Woman.
Treating their Saturday morning audience like little Fruit Loop-fed morons, a stupid floating drumstick bobs through the air to denote that Kingpin is on site but invisible. However, none of our lead characters seem to notice a non-invisible floating half-eaten chicken drumstick suspended in midair. Hopefully, for all those Karen Page fanboys and fangirls out there, Vincent D'Onofrio will just see Daredevil quick change as a floating drumstick watches when the new Netflix Daredevil season premieres.
You're a good reporter, Miss Drew, but as a superhero, you have a lot to learn.
Although the Kingpin blackmails Jessica Drew and kidnaps her nephew and boy toy photographer, the humiliation of one of Marvel's greatest villains is complete when Spider-Woman venom blasts Kingpin and his men into visibility using a purple dye. Looking like Grimace, the Kingpin is defeated and a robot duplicate more in line with Superman's robot duplicates keeps Spider-Woman's identity as Jessica Drew a continued secret. A much more favorable interpretation of the first meeting between Spider-Woman and the Kingpin takes place by the year 1982 inside the pages of Spider-Woman issue number 46. Although on opposite sides of the law, when Spider-Woman risks her own life to save those under a Mandroid attack, Wilson Fisk does not hesitate to return the favor.
You will be sorry, Spider-Woman. No one defies the dread Dormammu and survives.
Other Marvel villain mainstays that Spider-Woman would encounter on her animated series were far and few between. In the episode titled Realm of Darkness, not only does it mark the first animated appearance of Doctor Strange's arch-nemesis, the Dread Dormammu, but Spider-Woman faces off against his army of mindless ones in the Dark Dimension. The mindless ones make their first appearance inside the pages of Strange Tales, issue 127. Other animated appearances from the mindless ones come in the Superhero Squad Show episode titled Enter Dormammu, as well as the various stable of animated shows that have been shown on Disney XD, such as Ultimate Spider-Man, Hulk and the Agents of Smash, and Avengers Assemble.
Hulk love games!
While they're clearly not intended to represent the Marvel stable of monsters from Werewolf by Night, Tomb of Dracula, or the Monster of Frankenstein, Spider-Woman faces down a three-man monster squad in the episode titled Dracula's Revenge. In the episode The Amazon Adventure, gold stolen from Fort Knox leads to a confrontation between Spider-Woman and a Wonder Woman clone named Shanna. Though the Amazon leader Shanna is not from Marvel Comics, the Amazon Queen Hippolyta certainly plays a big role in Marvel Comics involving the Incredible Hercules.
What do you have to say about this? Amazon, attack!
Similarly, while Spider-Woman confronts a little bald dude who calls himself the Human Fly in the episode titled The Spider-Woman and the Fly, he is neither the supervillain Richard Deacon from the pages of Amazing Spider-Man or Spider-Woman, nor is he the superhero with his own Marvel comic book title based on real-life stuntman Rick Rojat. Instead, this version of the Human Fly is a former associate of Spider-Woman's father, Dr. Alex Drew, named Dr. Haggle. Haggle comes across more like the creature from the 1958 science fiction horror film than any of his comic book namesakes.
Well, it's not exactly my style, but it'll have to do.
Like many cartoons from the late 70s, it's pretty easy to spot the influence the space epic Star Wars had on this series. The alien villainess, Namara, from the episode titled The Deadly Dream, has the look of a female Darth Vader and brings forth people's greatest nightmares. If you're a fan of Marvel's Star Wars comic, she may even remind you of Darth Vader's stand-in post-Return of the Jedi called Lumia. Spider-Woman even has a lightsaber battle with another Darth Vader wannabe in the episode titled invasion of the black hole. Although the Vader pastiche is called Graviton, he certainly shouldn't be confused with the Avengers nemesis with the same name. Nor should you mistake this episode of Spider-Woman for Disney's The Black Hole or Close Encounters of the Third Kind either.
Galloping tarantulas. I think I'm about to have a close encounter of the worst kind.
Paradoxical in more ways than one, the episode titled A Crime in Time sees a trip by way of an experimental time machine to the year 3000. Apparently, by the 30th century, humanity will be under siege by an army of Wookiees who are brought back to the present time to help the vile time criminal Dr. T take over the world.
Sorry I had to keep it a secret from you guys, but it was for your own good.
Keep what a secret?
This. And Jessica.
Even though the attack on Washington, D.C. causes Jessica Drew to reveal to Billy and Jeff that she is actually Spider-Woman, the way they resolve this shattering of the status quo is to have the trio travel back in time 24 hours before the events of this episode ever occur.
And I hate to do this to you, but for your own good, you mustn't know the true identity of Spider-Woman. So the three of us are going to take a little trip, 24 hours back into time, before this all began.
What? Spider-Woman's live-action appearances on television amount to a blink and you'll miss her bit on the short-lived TV series Once a Hero, and as one of the background extras in the Saturday Night Live sketch Superhero Party.
I've got to get out of here so I can change into Spider-Woman.
You better get out of here, Jessica. I'll handle that monster.
But Jeff...
Do what I say, Jessica.
Okay, you're the boss.
While I remember enjoying watching this series as a kid and hold no ill will towards it, the show does tend to hit you over the head with the whole women's liberation movement. Aunt Jessica always knows best. Any male characters, including Spider-Man, tend to be reverse stereotypes who are simply gigantic dimwits, and of course, nothing says I love you like Jeff Hunt's male chauvinism.
I told you this work was too dangerous for a woman. You could have been killed.
Well, of all the bigoted, anti-feminist, cretinous remarks...
This is no job for a girl like you, now that's final.
Oh, you man!
Although the character of Jeff Hunt was created especially for the Spider-Woman animated series, Jerry Hunt was an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. whose first appearance was in the very first issue of Spider-Woman. Jerry and Jessie eventually had a whirlwind romance, but their inevitable breakup came by Spider-Woman issue number 16 in the year 1979.
Looks like our pseudo-spider hero has betrayed our country. Boy, if I could get my hands on her, I'd show her a thing or two.
I'm sure you would, Jeff. I'm sure you would.
Ultimately, starting out as a comic book collector by the late 80s, VHS tapes of this cartoon were really all the Spider-Woman I had to go by. The character was ignominiously killed off in the final issue of her self-titled series early in the year 1983. While she was later brought back inside the pages of Avengers, I mainly knew Jessica Drew as a costumeless private investigator who was merely a supporting character in Wolverine's very first ongoing series. It really wasn't until Brian Michael Bendis took a shine to the character that she had a return to prominence. She would become one of his pet characters by the year 2005 as a member of the New Avengers. This was quickly followed by a modern retelling of her backstory in the miniseries Spider-Woman Origin that plays fast and loose with the canon of the original series. Even with any nostalgia generated from this animated series, the character was so inconsequential for the majority of my early comic book collecting days that I always failed to see why the character was even brought back out of the mothballs in the first place.
I didn't know women could be so tough.
We can be just as tough as men. Ah! Oh, I almost broke a nail. Open this for me, will you, Jeff?
Oh, Jessica.
La mujer araña. Mujer araña. Ah, haces justicia, mujer araña.
Esta es Jessica Drew, quien siendo niña, mientras visitaba el laboratorio de su padre, fue mordida por una araña venenosa. Forzado a utilizar un suero de arácnidos sin experimentar, el doctor Drew no solo salvó la vida de su hija, sin saberlo, le dio increíbles poderes de arácnido que ella ahora utiliza para luchar contra el mal, a la vez que apoya la justicia como la Mujer Araña.
Mujer Araña, ¿de dónde vienes, Mujer Araña? Solo tú podrás vencerlos, Mujer Araña.
Oh, you man!